there are more than 10,000 kinds of birds all around the world. But all of these birds lay eggs except one of them. This bird is a mammal, and bats are the only mammals that can fly. The earliest types of bats come after the extinction of dinosaurs. But these early bats don't look anything like the bats we see today. The earliest type of bat that has been found by archaeologists started to show itself on Earth around 50 million years ago. And this is the most complete fossil they have of this ancient creature. The main difference the early bat has is that the legs are longer. It has tinier hands and wings. And on the tip of each finger, there are claws like a cat. And these things we just mentioned are not found in modern bats. The earliest form of bat has a scientific name called the Onychonycteris. And even though it was very similar to the modern bat, it didn't have the most important tool, echolocation. In simple terms, echolocation allows the bat to find its way by just making noise. And the way the noise bounces back to its ear, they can realize where they are and where they need to go. This might sound insane for a blind animal to be this good at seeing, but that's how bats evolved. With echolocation, they know exactly where they are and what they need to do. The sound bats make for echolocation cannot be heard by you and I unless there is a whole lot of them. And this is kind of a good thing. Imagine late at night, you could hear these things easily. It would be kind of scary or somewhat annoying. It's interesting to know that praying mantis has a special type of ear just to detect bats. One of the main predators that goes for praying mantis are bats, so it's very important for the praying mantis to know when they're coming, and their ears are specially evolved just to detect bats. The main food source for bats are insects. Ever since day one, Onychonycteris was always hunting down insects, and that remains to this day. It is also important to note that Onychonycteris fossils have been found in every single continent except Antarctica. One of the most important questions about bats is that how is it possible for a mammal to be flying? In the history of Earth, this is the only mammal that has been able to fly. When you look at the skeleton of a bat, you kind of think it's a primate, which is why early in the 19th century, some scientists would say that bats are primates, which means it's very similar to monkeys and even humans. But this theory didn't last long. When scientists got familiar with DNA in the 1960s, they realized that they're completely wrong and bats have nothing to do with primates. They are their own type of group. Another thing that scientists can't figure out about the Onychonycteris is that was it blind or could it see? We all know that bats today are blind, but with just the fossil, you really can't tell, especially since scientists don't believe that this early bat had echolocation, so it should be able to see without echolocation. The early theory says that bats could barely see in the early days. Basically, they had very poor vision, and that's why they evolved to have better echolocation rather than vision. And slowly, over millions of years, the eye went blind and the echolocation got stronger. Even though bats don't look like the most cute animal, and some people refer to them as demons, but you have to know that they're one of the most useful animals in the world because they control the population of insects, mostly insects that do a lot of harm. So if you get rid of bats in a certain area, the population of the insects in that area booms, and that could cause a lot of damages. This is why it's called the ecosystem. You remove one thing, you ruin the balance of everything. But let's get back to why this mammal was able to fly. Unfortunately, there are no certain answers, but there are theories. One theory suggests that bats used to hunt insects, but it lived in the trees. In simple terms, it could climb trees and find insects, but it could not fly. You could kind of compare it to a shrew, which is a little mouse-looking animal that climbs trees and eats all types of insects. And of course, shrews can't fly. Another interesting thing is that shrews have echolocation. They have eyes and they could see, but the vision is very poor, so they're dependent on the echolocation to find their prey. Over millions of years, the bat had trouble finding prey by just walking on the trees, and scientists believe this is the reason its arms turned into wings, tiny wings where it could jump from branch to branch. And over time, these tiny wings turned into bigger wings where the bat could continuously fly everywhere. And the theory basically says this is how this mammal was able to fly, just because it wanted to find more food easier. The theory continues and says the better the bat got at flying, the less it could see, but its echolocation got stronger. So it was more dependent on the echolocation rather than seeing the prey. Of course, there are a whole lot of other theories about how bats started to fly. Like some scientists say that the echolocation got strong before it could fly. And unfortunately, since the only records we have are fossils, we really can't be certain on how they started to fly and if they had proper vision or proper echolocation at this time. Just like we said, scientists thought bats are primates before they started to examine their DNA. Another interesting story is that the closest thing to a bat in terms of DNA is a blue whale, the largest species in Earth's history. Blue whales live here today, but they're still the largest living thing in the history of planet Earth. Even bigger than mammoths and the biggest dinosaurs in history. Scientists aren't saying that bats are similar to blue whales. They're just saying how unique these two creatures are. That the closest species to them in terms of DNA is the blue whale. But they are similar in some ways. They're both mammals, and they don't live in the usual environment of a mammal. Blue whales live in the water, and bats can fly. Another similarity between them is that blue whales have somewhat of an echolocation. They use their sound to find where they're going. And unlike bats, you could very much hear blue whales. Even when they're under deep water, you could still hear them. Underwater, an echolocation like this is very common. Dolphins have it, and sharks have the most sophisticated one, but it's not really echolocation. It works with electricity. A good example is the hammerhead shark. The reason the head of this shark got so wide is to make its echolocation, or its correct term, electroreception, work better. The wider the head of the shark is, the radar works better, which is why this shark evolved to have a giant wide head. It's kind of like a satellite dish. The bigger it is, the stronger it will be. But let's get back to the bats. Bats are one of the most useful animals in history. They only help out by controlling the insect population. But of course, there is one bat that's bad, and that's the vampire bat. Because just like mosquitoes, it could carry diseases, and it likes to hunt other animals and suck their blood. But these types of bats are quite rare.